welcome to class today, Scholar. How y'all doing?
Good.
Joe? Nice to see y'all today, man. All right, so today we're gonna be learning about compromise and the Constitution. All right, and we building off what we was working on last week with the Articles of Confederation and the Shades Rebellion, things like that. All right, cool. But before we dive in, I just want to give y'all a quick little thinking, like a little do now to get the juices flowing about compromising, what compromising is, and what it even looks like in a real life setting, right? All right, so first thing to do. So imagine your class is planning a field trip, right? Half of the class wants to go to Six Flags and the other half wants to go to the beach. What could you do to make sure everyone is satisfied? Now, before you answer me, I would like you to jot down, I'm gonna give you about a minute and a half or so. You're gonna jot down a couple ideas on your paper on how we can make this compromise, how we can make sure everybody get what they want. Sorry, I'm gonna get you guys a pencil really quick. Use these right here. So just jot down a couple ideas on how we can make this work right here. How can we compromise? Let's say Joe wants to go to Six Flags and Caden here wants to go to the beach. How y'all gonna make that work? I'll give you about 30 seconds or so. I see Josiah actively writing. Thank you, sir. Okay, working diligently. Appreciate it. All right, seems like everybody done. Let's keep it going. All right, so here we have. What you got? You want to share first, Kate?
Yeah, I was thinking that we can split it, that I can go to the beach and then with one of the teachers, and then Josiah can go to the Six Flags with one of the teachers. We can maybe split it up instead of going to the same place.
Okay, so your plan is let's split up. If there's more than one chaperone there, let half the group go to the beach, let half go to Six Flags. And everybody get what they want in there?
Yeah.
Sounds like a good compromise to me. What you thinking, Joe? What you got like that?
They could take a vote and like choose one.
Okay, so they could take a vote and choose one. All right, I like that. And now with that vote, it makes it a little, will everybody be satisfied? But will everybody respect the vote? You know what I mean? So compromise kind of that. You might not get all the way what you want, but you might give something else. So look, this was my idea actually. So I said kind of like you did, but instead of splitting the group, I said everybody do both. So let's say it's not enough chaperones to go around, right? Maybe we go to Six Flags at the beginning of our time that we out that day, and then maybe we hit up the beach later, or vice versa. And then everybody get a little bit what they want, and then nobody else missing out on the other stuff either. You know? Just a thought. When you compromise, as long as you can find a way where everybody's happy, you did something with it, right? All right, so getting into that. So before we even get into the Constitution and all the compromise that went into the Constitution, I'm gonna introduce y'all to a little bit of vocabulary here. See, y'all gonna run across these words in your readings, even in the prompts that we do coming up, right? So y'all know how I like to do it. Anybody want to read this first one? Just nice and loud so they can hear you.
An agreement in which each side gives up part of its demands to each of as
To reach a solution. Is that what we just did with the Six Flags and the thing, right? You get that? All right. Representation. Joe, take that one.
The ways that states or groups are given a voice or vote in government.
Exactly. It's your voice, your representation. Me, you. That's our representation. We represent our state. We represent our country. All right. Bicameral. That's a word you're going to hear towards the end of the lesson, but it's a legislative body with two houses. You guys are familiar with our Senate and our House of Representatives, right? So this is what that system's called, a bicameral system, right? All right, cool. So then you have the Great Compromise. Okay, take that one.
the agreement that created the
Bicameral legislature.
registration of balancing representations for large and small states.
Exactly. Then our 3/5 compromise. Joe, take that one.
The agreement that county regulation involves as 3/5 of a person's preference purpose of regulation and tax.
Exactly. And lastly but not least, ratification or ratified. Formal approval of the law, treaty, or constitution. That's basically the saying, hey, this is a go. This is what we going with. Ratified, we out here. It approved it, right? So, first thing we'll do, let's cover the old stuff first. So, last week we did Articles of Confederation, right? We learned how that was, right? So basically we knew that it served as the first constitution of the United States. However, it was very weak in the way that it was built, right? All right. So there was no president, there was no leaders, there was no Supreme Court, right? There was nothing to law the people and keep everyone in line, right? So it got so bad that the National Congress was so weak that they could not even collect taxes anymore. Sound familiar from me? Also, y'all remember touching on Shays' Rebellion as well. Each state had their own money currency, right? So we didn't even know the value of money at the time because everybody had a different currency. All right, and this caused farmers to end up getting taxed badly, which they racked up a bunch of debt, and so they took their frustrations out on the courts, right? So when they did that and they formed a rebellion against the courts and things of that nature, then the state militia came in, and now you have the state and the people fighting against each other, right? And that's not the America we live in, right? Boom. So it got so bad that the Congress would say, hey, we need a convention. We gotta set this right. We have to make sure that everybody getting what they want. We have to compromise, right? Word of the day, guys. So that leads us to the Constitutional Convention. Sorry about that, guys. So a meeting, it was held May 25th, 1787 in Philadelphia. This is where the delegates from the states, they wrote the Constitution, guys. 55 delegates showed up from 12 states. Right?
Is it 13
states?
It is 13 states. You was right. At that time, it was 13 states. However, Rhode Island did not attend. They didn't think they had to be there. They felt that they were okay by themselves doing their own thing. So Rhode Island didn't attend. So that's why you had the 12 states here. And basically, all came out of this meeting was how are we going to run this government? All right. So now that we're at the convention, there were two plans that got proposed to everyone. Correct. So, it was the Virginia plan, mostly spearheaded by James Madison. That plan favored people over states, all right? And their whole plan was to the number of representatives that you have for each state was based on your population, right? So, that leads us to the New Jersey plan, right? Which mostly was spearheaded by William Patterson. Now, this favored states over people. Every state received the same amount of votes. The same number of representatives, sorry. All right, so when we're dealing with large states and we're dealing with small states, which of the two do you think would have been cool with the Virginia plan? The larger states. And why would that be, Kay?
Because they
were based on population.
Based on population, so they would win more, they would get more representation because they have more people, right? Now, obviously, that's not fair for the small states. That's why this New Jersey plan, which most likely it would have, and it would have been more small states would agree with this plan, right? Because it gives them an even playing field to hang out with the larger states, or even to get their stuff up through, right? So now, small state. Oh, let me take that back for you. So, talking about this and getting the same number of representatives, right? Larger states just have more people, correct? Smaller states don't. However, some of the smaller states are in the South, which brought us to another compromise that we had dealing with the debates around slavery. So basically, the South said, because they were lacking in numbers, the South said, hey, we want to count our enslaved people. So the North pushed back and said, no, that's not fair, because you treat them like property. So if you're gonna count them as people, then we need to they should be given freedom and voting rights. And then you can count them as people, count them towards your representation, get more representation inside of the Congress, right? So with knowing that, we're gonna stop for a quick second, take all that info in, and we're gonna answer these. We'll just kind of peer discuss these two questions right here, right? So first one, how did the 3/5 compromise impact representation in Congress?